Well, we just celebrated Independence Day. It is hot and the summer is in full swing, and we are still celebrating the legislative session, and the governor has just called a special session that's going to meet in just a matter of days. So the legislative session was historic for us, and I want to talk about about three issues that kind of highlight that. So we were disappointed that our parental rights legislation, the Family Unity Act, didn't move, but we made progress on that. And as we've learned, many of these issues you have to work on for several sessions. Perhaps our most historic victory was the victory in passing the Child Trauma Prevention Act, which is a historic CPS reform legislation. And it was exciting to see. We've worked on that legislation for 4 years, got legislators involved. We met for years with all the stakeholders. And I think the fact that we passed that legislation with only 5 no votes in the House and unanimously in the Senate shows that everybody understood this was historic legislation. This was legislation that was going to protect innocent families and children. And so we're excited that the governor has signed that bill into law. And I'll just talk about just 2 or 3 major issues here that this bill does. Number one, this bill clarified that the rules of civil procedure and pleadings in CPS cases apply just like in all other cases. And I know that might seem like a no-brainer, but you'd be shocked at how many times CPS just says, you know, this law doesn't apply to us because we're really about protecting the children. So the bill clarified that. You can't hide behind just protecting the children. The law applies. You gotta follow the law. Another thing that this bill did was it clarifies that a CPS case has to end in a certain period of time. No more can CPS simply start a case and this family and these children are in flux for years. This has to be done in a limited amount of time, and so that's going to be historic for a lot of these families. So another thing that we do during the legislative session was not just are we trying to pass legislation, and that is very difficult, but we're on the lookout for bills that could be essentially really harmful to children and families. And one of those bills was HB 756. It's a bill, this is the 4th time we've seen that bill in the legislature. It's been killed the last 3 sessions, and I'm glad to say this session it was killed as well. This bill would have removed restrictions on when in-laws can sue fit parents for access or possession of their children. The current law says there has to be a divorce, incarceration, a death, or some kind of incapacitation. So this bill would have taken all those away and said any in-law could sue any fit parent for access or possession of their children. The bill also basically would do away with the requirement of the law to have a strict evidence requirement. So essentially this would have been open season on fit families, and I'm happy to say that we opposed that bill in committee. It didn't get voted out of committee, and it died. So that was an effort on our part to protect families from potential legislation. And you know, one of the things that we often say, and only half jokingly, is that no man's freedom or property is safe when the legislature's in session. And so we often hear people say, you know, if we do this, then we'll lose our freedom. The reality is every time the legislature meets, our freedom is at risk. And that's the reason we spend tens of thousands of dollars, have interns and our staff people down there to make sure that we are able to help keep Texas families free. Now, before I tell you about the most significant, or at least the most publicized piece of legislation we passed, I want to give a shout out and thanks to our sponsor, Alpha Omega Press. They've been a leading, award-winning curriculum provider since 1977. And I hope you'll check out their products on their website, linked below. And they've got these kind of products: Monarch, Switched On Schoolhouse, Life Pack, Horizons, and Ignite Christian Academy. Lots and lots of great curriculum, and I hope you'll click on the links below and check that out. Perhaps the most publicized, not perhaps, the most publicized piece of legislation that we worked on this session was the UIL Equal Access for Homeschoolers bill. That bill is a measure that we've been working on for over 2 decades. It's a bill that has been enacted either by rule or by law in 37 other states before Texas did this. It's a no-brainer. It doesn't impact anybody except those that want to participate, and 37 other states allow it. No state has increased regulation on homeschooling as a result of that legislation. In fact, several states have decreased the regulation on homeschooling. But I would not be surprised, you won't be surprised to know that every element of the public school lobby opposed this bill. The teacher unions, the school administrators, even the PTA opposed this piece of legislation. So here's the interesting thing. The original bill would have made this mandatory. In other words, every school district would be required to allow homeschoolers to participate. We couldn't get the votes with that bill in that measure to move it out of committee. So we made it permissive, which means that the law says if a school district in which the homeschool student lives chooses to, they can allow a homeschooler to participate. So that's not exactly what we wanted, but it's permissive. It gives the school districts the right to make that decision. And you know, the public school lobby, they're all about local control, except in this situation. They vehemently oppose this bill, even to allow the school district to make that choice. So we did pass that bill, and what this bill does is it requires University Interscholastic League, UIL, to amend their rules to make this possible based on what the bill language says. And the folks that oppose that oppose even allowing a local school to make that decision. So UIL is going to have to adopt rules to implement this. They've got until September the 1st to make it happen. They had a board meeting recently, and you can view that on the link below and watch it. They are not happy about this legislation. But their directors have made clear to them that this is something they have to do. The legislature directed them to do that. They have to follow the law. So we'll be following that and to make sure that people understand. We'll have a landing page on our website to give people direction and give them ideas about how this works. It's going to be a great idea. If you know somebody on your local school board and you want to do this, that's a great person to go talk to. Local school boards are elected at the local level, and they set direction and policy for the local school district. If you don't know them and you want to participate, this is a good time to meet them. So click on the links below for more information. Go to our website if you want to see how to do that, and we'll continue to follow up on this measure. And if we have to, we'll go back to the legislature next session to make this happen. So thank you for following THSC. Be sure and like this video, share it with your friends, and thanks for helping us keep Texas families free.